All right, Reddit, buckle up. Ethan here, and I'm usually pretty chill, but what happened at Walmart last Tuesday? Oh man, that day etched itself into my brain. It was one of those legendary Karen encounters that starts with a simple request and escalates into full-blown public theatrics. So picture this, I'm at Walmart minding my own business, right? My little guy Liam, he's 3, and he's currently obsessed with Paw Patrol. We're in the electronics aisle, mostly because it's a good place to hide from the sensory overload, and he's babbling away about Ryder and his pups while I'm trying to keep him from touching every single screen. You know, just a normal Tuesday afternoon with a toddler. Suddenly a woman probably in her late 50s, with that tightly wound, slightly aggrieved look some people just carry, barrels over to us. Let's just call her Karen because, well, she earned it. Excuse me, she huffs, not even a hello, just straight to it. Can you help me get a bike, a big one from the top rack? I blink at her, honestly a little taken aback. My uniform, a faded Metallica t-shirt and cargo shorts. No blue vest, no name tag, nothing. I'm not sure I can, I replied, gesturing vaguely to Liam. I'm just here with my kid, I don't actually work here. She actually snorted, oh come on, don't play coy, you look perfectly capable. I need a bike and I don't have time to waste. Her tone was already starting to grate on me, like I was personally inconveniencing her by existing. No, really, I tried again, my patience already wearing thin. I'm not an employee, you need to find someone who works here. Karen crossed her arms, a vein starting to throb faintly in her temple. She eyed my shoulders, then back to Liam, who was now trying to climb a display stand. Well, you certainly look like you can handle a bike, just grab me one. What kind of example are you setting for your kid, refusing to help a lady? She practically spat the word kid, glancing at Liam with a sneer that just boiled my blood. And that was it, something in me just snapped. I mean, my kid is the light of my life, and this woman was not only treating me like a servant, but now implying I was a bad parent. Oh no, not today. Are you seriously calling my son a welfare brat? I demanded, my voice dropping to a low, dangerous rumble, full-on angry dad mode engaged. Karen's eyes widened, though I suspected it was more performative shock than genuine surprise. What? No, I didn't say that. You just did, I bit back, stepping slightly in front of Liam, who was thankfully oblivious, now humming the Paw Patrol theme song. You just insulted my kid, and let me tell you, I am not going to stand for that. I did no such thing, she insisted, her voice rising. I just said you look like you can handle a bike, and you're refusing to help me, which is appalling. I'm the one who needs help here. You want help, I retorted, pointing a finger towards the back of the store. Go to customer service. I'm not helping someone who insults my child. Her jaw dropped. Excuse me, you're not going to help me. I'll report you, I'll have your job. I just stared at her, then down at Liam. Enough was enough. I wasn't going to let this woman ruin our afternoon. Liam had been asking for a new toy, and you know what? He deserved it after this. You can report whoever you want, lady, I said, my voice ice cold. But you can think twice before calling people's children welfare brats. Now, if you'll excuse us, we're leaving. I took Liam's hand firmly. What did you just say to me? She shrieked, but I was already walking away, pulling Liam towards the toy section, then the sporting goods aisle. He'd actually been talking about a bike recently. You know what? Let's go big. We got to the bike section and I spotted a cool red one with flames that Liam would absolutely adore. Hey buddy, I knelt down, how about this one? His eyes lit up. I flagged down a passing employee, a young guy named Mark, who looked slightly bewildered. Hey Mark, I said, trying to keep my voice even, can you help me get this bike? And actually, the lady who just followed us in here, she keeps trying to say I work here and insulted my kid. She's probably going to cause a scene. Mark, bless his soul, seemed to grasp the situation instantly. Sure thing, sir. Which one? As I pointed to Liam's new bike, Karen stomped up, her face a furious mask. Hey, what are you doing? I need that bike. You promised you'd get me a bike. Mark, already scanning the barcode, looked at her calmly. Ma'am, this gentleman is purchasing this bike for his son. No, he's not. He was supposed to get my bike. He's trying to steal it. She yelled, lunging for the handle of the red bike. Whoa, ma'am, please step back, Mark said, pushing the bike gently away from her. The bike is already paid for. You need to leave it alone. Paid for, she screeched. He can't pay for it. He kidnapped his own son, and he's stealing my bike. At this point, the commotion had drawn the attention of an assistant manager, a stern-looking woman with a headset. Is there a problem here? She asked, her gaze sweeping between us. Yes, Karen wailed, pointing a shaky finger at me. This man assaulted me, and he's kidnapping his son, and he stole my bike. He called my son a welfare brat. The assistant manager looked utterly bewildered. Ma'am, calm down, sir, what happened? I just held up my receipt. Ma'am, I simply bought a bike for my son after this woman repeatedly harassed me, demanded I get her a bike, and then insulted my child. I don't work here, as you can plainly see. Mark chimed in. She's been yelling at him since electronics, ma'am. He paid for this bike. Karen was now full-on red-faced, sputtering. He's lying. They're both lying. He's a menace. I'm going to report all of you. She then did the most dramatic thing imaginable. She actually collapsed onto the floor, a guttural, fake-sounding sob tearing from her throat. My bike. My bike, she wailed, tears streaming down her face. It was less like genuine distress and more like a poorly acted soap opera scene. The assistant manager exchanged a glance with Mark. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to get up. If you have an issue, you need to go to customer service. This bike is paid for. Karen just kept sobbing, clutching her chest. He stole it. He's a monster. Sir, the assistant manager turned to me, a hint of a sympathetic smile playing on her lips. I think you and your son have had enough excitement for one day. Please go enjoy your new bike. We'll handle this. I didn't need to be told twice. I scooped up Liam, who was now thoroughly confused by the loud lady on the floor, and grabbed the red bike. As we walked past, Mark gave me a quick nod and a knowing wink. Thank you, I mumbled, pulling Liam away from the theatrical meltdown. So yeah, we got Liam a new bike that day, but it came with a side of absolute chaos and a woman who clearly thought Walmart was her personal assistant service. And me. I learned that some people will truly say anything, and that sometimes a new bike is the best revenge. Never ever mess with a dad and his kid, especially not when Paw Patrol is involved.
This next one had Reddit losing its mind. Quick pause, subscribe now, because the chaos doesn't stop here.
I thought my days of corporate nonsense were well and truly behind me. After decades in the trenches, I'd retired, content to spend my golden years telling tall tales on Reddit and maybe, just maybe, occasionally helping out my old boss with a consulting gig for a bit of extra beer money. But that illusion shattered like a cheap glass when I walked into the CEO's office that Tuesday morning. My old boss, bless his heart, had called me a week earlier. Look, I know you're retired, he'd said, but we've got this one client, a big one, having some issues with their new system. They need a seasoned eye, someone who knows the ropes. Think of it as a quick, easy favor. A favor it was. I wasn't an employee. I was an independent consultant brought in for my expertise, not to be anyone's lackey. I arrived at the client's swanky downtown office building, and the manager, a genuinely friendly guy named Dave, met me in the lobby. He seemed a little on edge, which I initially put down to the issues I was there to help with. As we walked, he gave me the lowdown, stressing how important this particular client was to their business. Just try to be patient with Mr. Sterling, the CEO, Dave mumbled, almost an afterthought as we approached the boardroom. He can be particular. And then I met Mr. Sterling. The moment I shook his hand, I felt it. He was immaculately dressed, suit so sharp it could cut diamonds, but his eyes held a dismissive glint that told me everything I needed to know. He barely acknowledged Dave, his gaze sweeping over me as if trying to calculate my worth based solely on my age. The meeting started, and it quickly became clear Sterling wasn't interested in solutions, just in asserting his dominance. He cut people off, waved away suggestions, and generally behaved like the world's most important man trapped in a room full of lesser mortals. I found myself biting my tongue more than once. About 15 minutes in, right as I was about to offer my initial assessment, he stopped me mid-sentence. He didn't even look at me. Instead, he snapped his fingers, motioning towards the conference room door. "Get me a coffee," he demanded, his voice flat, his eyes fixed on some imaginary spot on the ceiling. "Black, and hurry it up." I paused. Dave shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The air in the room thickened. My brain, slow from retirement-induced relaxation, took a moment to process the words. Me. I looked around, then back at Mr. Sterling, who was still staring into the middle distance, as if his order was already being fulfilled by sheer force of will. "Excuse me," I said, trying to keep my voice even, though a familiar warmth was starting to prickle at the back of my neck. He finally deigned to look at me, a flicker of annoyance in his eyes. "I said, get me a coffee," he repeated, his tone sharper now, laced with a patronizing impatience. "What, are you deaf?" That was it, the last straw. Decades of corporate BS had taught me one thing: never let someone disrespect you, especially not when you're doing them a favor. I leaned back in my chair, a calm, almost predatory smile spreading across my face. "Mr. Sterling," I began, my voice clear and deliberate, "I'm actually here as an independent consultant for old boss's company. I was brought in to provide expert advice on your system issues, not to fetch beverages." His face, already a little flushed from his earlier pontificating, turned a delightful shade of crimson. His jaw dropped, and for a full second he just stared at me, completely aghast. You refused to get me a coffee," he sputtered, as if I'd just insulted his lineage. "In my own office. Do you know who I am?" "Oh, I know exactly who you are, sir," I replied, my smile unwavering. "And I know who I am. And I can assure you I'm not your barista." Dave, the manager, finally found his voice, a squeaky little "Mr. Sterling, this is," but the CEO cut him off with a furious gesture. "Get out," Sterling roared, pointing a trembling finger at the door. "Get out of my office. And don't ever set foot in this building again." I pushed my chair back, the scrape echoing in the suddenly silent room. No apology, no explanation, no attempt to smooth things over. Just pure, unadulterated entitlement. "Gladly," I said, standing up. I gathered my briefcase, made sure to make eye contact with everyone else in the room, all of whom looked thoroughly uncomfortable, and then, with a final, pointed nod at Sterling, I walked out. I didn't rush. I didn't slam the door. I just left with an air of quiet finality. Dave caught up with me in the hallway, looking utterly mortified. "Oh my God, I am so sorry about that, sir," he stammered, wringing his hands. He's never like this to consultants, I swear." "Dave," I said, putting a hand on his shoulder, "it's not your fault, but I'm not going back in there. My consultation is over. You can tell Mr. Sterling that his issues just got a whole lot worse, because he certainly won't be getting my help." As I walked out of that building and into the crisp autumn air, a profound sense of satisfaction washed over me. I pulled out my phone and called my old boss. He listened in stunned silence as I recounted the entire episode. He wasn't happy, of course, but he understood. "Honestly," he said, "I don't blame you. That guy's a piece of work." I knew in my gut that walking away was the right thing to do. There's a point where dignity trumps everything else, and that entitled jerk had crossed it. I might be retired, I might be doing a favor, but I still deserved respect. And if a CEO can't even offer that, then he doesn't deserve my expertise, or anyone else's for that matter. I don't know if Mr. Sterling ever got his coffee that day, but I do know that I walked away from his company with my head held high, refusing to be treated like a second-class citizen. And sometimes, friends, that's the most valuable thing you can do. You ever have one of those mornings where all you want is your coffee, your pancakes, and absolutely zero human interaction? Yeah, that was me last Tuesday. I swear, sometimes the universe just loves to mess with a perfectly good breakfast. I'm Ethan, and I was at my local Golden Arches doing my usual routine. A stack of fluffy pancakes, some crispy bacon, and those glorious golden brown hash browns. Pure, unadulterated bliss. I had my phone out, catching up on the news, completely in my zone. The world could have been ending, and I probably wouldn't have noticed until I'd finished my last bite. But then a distinct tone started to cut through the gentle hum of the breakfast rush. Not angry, not quite, but definitely heated. I tried to ignore it, to immerse myself deeper into an article about cat videos, but it was like trying to ignore a mosquito in a quiet room. It just kept getting louder, more insistent. "Excuse me, XCUSCME." A man's voice boomed from the counter, practically vibrating with indignation. I glanced up. He was leaning over the counter, pointing a finger with the intensity of a prosecuting attorney. My perfect morning was officially on hold. The cashier, a young woman who looked like she'd seen it all before, was doing her best customer service smile, while this guy, let's call him Mr. Grumbles, continued his tirade. And that's when I caught the gist of it. "I just saw him," Mr. Grumbles declared, his voice rising. "Behind the fridge, he didn't wash his hands. He was just touching things. And then he went straight back to fiddling with that equipment. Who knows what he's been touching?" Okay, that caught my attention. Unwashed hands near food prep. Valid complaint, honestly. My hash browns suddenly felt a little less glorious. The cashier, bless her heart, tried to defuse the situation. "Sir, I assure you our technicians are always very careful." He was likely just on a short break and would absolutely wash his hands before handling anything related to food production. She delivered it with practiced calm, a testament to her battle-hardened patience. But Mr. Grumbles wasn't having it. "Oh, I'll assure you," he snapped back, getting even louder. "I'm going to report this to the health inspector. This is absolutely disgusting, unsanitary." Suddenly, a figure emerged from the back near the industrial fridges. He was wearing grubby work pants, a slightly greasy t-shirt, and had a wrench still clutched in one hand. He looked exactly like what he was, a maintenance technician. He'd clearly overheard the whole thing, and his face was a picture of deer-in-headlights panic. Whoa, hold on," the technician stammered, holding up his free hand. He looked at Mr. Grumbles, then at the cashier, then vaguely at the ceiling. I don't work here. I'm just a customer. I was just taking a break." My jaw almost hit the table. He doesn't work here. He was literally standing next to the broken fridge, holding a wrench in a McDonald's uniform of sorts. The absurdity was palpable. A quiet ripple of confused whispers spread through the few other customers in line. Mr. Grumbles, for his part, went from outrage to absolutely incandescent. "You don't work here," he shrieked, his face turning a truly magnificent shade of purple. "You were just behind the counter, with a wrench. You think I'm stupid." The technician, clearly out of his depth, just kind of mumbled. "Yeah, well, sometimes I just hang out in the back." His eyes darted around, pleading for an escape. The wrench in his hand seemed to mock his pathetic denial. The cashier, bless her again, simply blinked, took a slow, deep breath and turned to the next customer in line. She just ignored both of them. It was a masterclass in professional detachment. The technician, sensing his cue, gave one last awkward shrug and practically melted back into the shadows behind the fridge, the wrench disappearing with him. Mr. Grumbles stood there for a beat, sputtering, trying to form a coherent sentence, but the cashier was already taking the next order, completely unfazed. Finally, he let out a frustrated huff that sounded like a deflating balloon, turned on his heel, and stomped out of the restaurant, muttering threats about health inspectors and lawsuits under his breath. A collective sigh of relief seemed to sweep through the place. The cashier offered a wry, tired smile to the next customer, who was clearly trying not to laugh. I took a bite of my hash brown, which, surprisingly, tasted glorious again. Just another perfectly chaotic morning at the Golden Arches. And that, folks, is why my breakfast routine is never truly boring. You just never know what kind of drama is going to unfold with your pancakes.
This next video hits the same vibe. Check it out.